Hello. So this video is expands on the last video. So if you haven't watched it, please do so. Or if you don't know anything about sudo or visudo. So this video we're using visudo to assign privileges for using sudo using aliases. So the previous command we added max, if you remember. I'm going to show you in a minute. And now we're going to group users and commands. So if we look here, I did a grep of max in the etc-sudoers file, and we gave max the ability to perform this and only this. And we demonstrated that we could do that here. Oops, sorry, wrong one. That max could do that here. So here, this user is max, and max can do this. Oops, sorry, wrong one. We only this. There we go. So I'm going to Control C to end it. So that was one user. But what if we had multiple users and multiple commands that we wanted these users to be able to do? Well, Max was a new person. He's a trainee, or she's a trainee, and we've just hired Sam. So we want Sam, so we're expanding our company, and we're going to have a lot of trainees, so we want to group them together so we don't have to add a line for everybody and make sure they have everything we want them to do, because we want them to be able to tail this log, and we also want them to be able to tail sys log. So we saw here Max does not have permission to do that, but I want Max to be looking at these logs. I'm training Max, but I don't want him to be able to impact anything, but I want him to be able to look at these logs. So what I'm going to do now is add something called an alias. So we're going back, we're using visudo, but we're going to add an alias so that we can group them together. So let's run visudo. So we have to use sudo to run visudo. If you remember, if we run it as a regular user, not allowed. So we need to use sudo to run visudo. So here I am in this file. And you see down here, what you can do if you really need to manage it well is you can uncomment this and then put the files that will be used to manage it in the etc-sudoers directory. So etc-sudo will include what's in the etc-sudoers directory. But for now, we're just going to do it in here. So that's if you get a little more complex. So now instead of having this this line, what I want to do is I wanted to create a group that includes Max and Sam. So we've already added Max, we've added Sam as users. So what I need to do is I need to set up a user alias. And I choose the name for this. I'm going to call it trainees. So my trainees are Max and Sam. So they're new, and so anybody new that I add, I can just add them to this group. I don't have to go and make all kinds of changes. So I need a user alias. So the user alias is name on the left-hand side, uppercase, an equal sign, and then a list of names. So we can also use groups here. And just like this, if I wanted to include everybody in the new people's group, so I could say %new. I'd have to have a group new. So in this case, I don't really have a group. I'm just going to leave it like that. I can also, so now I have my alias or my group for set up for the new trainees. So since I want them to do more than one command, I'm also going to set up a command alias. So let's do that. So command alias is cmd alias. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this one logs. So I want them to be able to tail the logs. So I'm going to join this line. I'm just hitting delete there. And I'm going to say, oops, logs equals, I have to get rid of this. So then what I do is I create whatever command I want them to be able to do very specifically. And then I also comma delimit that. So user bin tail. And even though I'm using tail as an example of the log files, you can use any command you want here. So this just happens to be the easiest thing to demonstrate this right now. So now I have the two aliases or groups, and I want them to be able to use this command, so I have to set up a line that will do that for me. So now I need to add a line to use these. So here, if you notice, remember the syntax is user, host that they come from, commands, I keep doing that, accounts, and then commands. So what I want to do, instead of using Max or Sam, what I do here is I use trainees. So trainees coming from any host, so I'm going to say all, and coming from any user. I could limit it, but I want to add whatever users. I could say coming from, anyway, we'll just say all. Any accounts. I want to be able to execute logs. Oops, sorry, I was typing in the wrong window. So this says anybody in the alias trainees coming from any host and any account should be able to use anything in my command alias. So now let's see if visudo likes it. So I'm going to say X for exit, yes to save the modified buffer, hit enter, and it says reference but not defined. I must have created a typo. So let's go back in there. Reference but not defined. It's interesting. There's an error here. Oops, I think I found it. It's not CMD, it's CMND, so it didn't recognize that as an alias. It's command. So let's try it again. Save, yes, hit enter. Okay, so it liked that, so it said that was okay. So now I know that I hope that both Max and Sam will be able to do those tail commands. So let's go back here. Here I'm running as Max, so let's try it. Make sure that this works. Okay, well, let's go back to the original. So that seems to work. That's good. We're 1 for 2. Let's try with syslog. That's the other thing. 2 for 2. So I know that Max can do this. So now let's make sure that Sam can do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch user to Sam. So if I use sudo to switch user, I don't need the password. But since I'm using su on its own, I do need the password. 1, 2, 3. Well, let's try using tail with. So now I'm Sam. Tail -f var log auth log. Ah, what's the problem? Well, I didn't use sudo. Sam's password, that works. Now let's try syslog. That works. So what I've done is through those commands, I'm going to just cat the file. So through these 3 lines, I have set it up so that now if somebody else joins the company, let's say Gonzo joins the company, all I have to do is add Gonzo here. And so any of my trainees, I just need to add them to trainees and they'll be able to do these log commands. If I have other commands that I want to add, I can add another command alias or I can add them to logs. So as you can see, I can use aliases to make groups and make it a little easier for myself. So that's using groups. And I can use any combination. Notice I have root here. So root I could use, if I have something special I need a particular person to do, I can have them on their own and I can have them have other people in groups. So I can use any combination. But be very careful, always use visudo, because if you do not, it won't point out those errors to you. And that last error was not that problematic, but any other kinds of typos, you may be messing with everybody's access to the system. So hopefully this was helpful.